going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. Now this is a video I definitely did not think I would be making anytime soon, and you can already tell by the title that this is just absolutely crazy. Now I ask you guys questions all the time, as you know, and now that we're talking about another Spider-Man game, Spider-Man 2 coming to the PlayStation 5, I want to ask you guys a very important question, and that is, should this game have a multiplayer? I want you guys to get in the comment section below and leave your thoughts on that one, because everyone knows that it was such a requested feature, even a co-op mode in the first Spider-Man game. So diving into this video, like I said, it definitely wasn't one that I expected to be making anytime soon. Now, on this website called Push Square, which I'll also link in the description below, as you say and as you see as well, it says, rumor, Marvel Spider-Man 2 is coming to PS5 sooner than you think. Now, what's interesting in this article is that they actually talk about a release date. So I'm going to read more or less word by word what they said and just kind of skip through it. So they said, of course, that you know Spider-Man, the first original game coming to PlayStation 4, was insanely big, right? And on this other site, which is kind of funny, there's a guy called Imran who apparently knows quite a bit about this supposed sequel. Now, what I want to say actually is, when we go back a while back, like a good couple months ago, when they were showing some demo footage on how the PlayStation 5 performs, remember they did show Spider-Man PS4. I know it sounds crazy, nothing like way too in the box, I guess you could say, right, that's official, but I just think, you know, when you go back to that and you can see how the current game does run on PlayStation 5, I mean, can you just imagine, you know, what I guess tools they have right at the tip of their fingers when it does come down to this new gen console, which has also been rumored and leaked with images as well over the last couple of days. Now, on this latest kind of funny Gamecast, the dude who apparently knows quite a bit about the sequel, which is called Imran, says, and I quote, "I know too much about Marvel Spider-Man 2, so I can't speculate too much, but I think a Spider-Man 2 will come sooner than we think." Now, what's also interesting is, on this kind of funny Gamecast, the Imran guy did mention that a Christmas 2021 release window earlier is basically likely to happen, more or less. I mean, when you take that into consideration, right, is 2021 sooner than you would imagine? Because when you do the math, of course, it, like with this website said as well in the article, that would mean that the game is set to launch roughly 3 years after its current game, which of course I guess not a lot of people do play now, but there's still a ton of people that are still picking up the game, and I guess if you don't play it for a while, you can definitely sort of dive back into it. But that would make it around 3 years after its game. You have to take into consideration that over the next year as well, we do have Marvel's Avengers game, and I've already said that Marvel's Avengers competition already is the current Spider-Man game. So now it's going to be a crazy, I mean, cycle of competition between these developers, because their current competition is a game that is going to be left on the last gen consoles, whereas Insomniac Games, which I would imagine are the people that will be making this, of course, means that they are going to have that, I guess, instant perk that the game is going to be releasing on the new gen consoles, and also that means that Marvel's competition is also going to be, well, Avengers, should I say, the Avengers games competition is also going to be the new Spider-Man game when that does release, because they're aiming for their game to be a long-term game, and it already does look great, but the one thing that this Spider-Man game would have is, of course, an open world. So instantly, in my opinion, you're kind of at a win when it does come to that stuff, purely because I've said in previous videos, you know, an open world game definitely makes your gameplay experience a whole lot more fun than, of course, just sort of, you know, mission driven gameplay. I mean, it's not like it can't be fun, but you see what I mean. It's just about having that flexibility to kind of get to know the character and essentially do exactly whatever you want and come across random crimes in the game. Now, if Insomniac moves straight over to the next title, which basically meaning this is complete in holiday 2021, it doesn't seem impossible, and it does seem quick. You have to take that into consideration. Now, with that said, of course, you got things like DLC and so forth. It's safe to say that the current Spider-Man game is more or less done. I can't see them adding any random DLCs into there, although they may when it comes down to announcing the next game. You really just don't know. I really think that like they're still going to take, you know, that I guess hype behind still the current game, because people still use photo mode in this game, and that gets a lot of attention. So it's not like the game isn't big anymore, it's just that the game doesn't get played as much anymore, but you can still create some really good things within that game because it gives you the tools to do that. Now on this push, Square, they did say, and I quote now exactly word by word, "With the PS5 launching late next year, its eventual lineup of exclusive games isn't difficult to predict, especially where first-party sequels are concerned. Alongside Marvel Spider-Man 2, you got God of War 2 and Horizon Zero Dawn 2 are equally inevitable." But Imran's wording definitely makes it seem as though he's got some insider knowledge on the former. What are your hopes and dreams for Marvel Spider-Man 2 on the PS5? Swing at speed through the comment section below. And of course, you know, people were, you know, really discussing on things that they feel that this game really needs to have. Now, I think a great thing is, with Insomniac Games, for them to already deliver a great game, right? I mean, you have to take into consideration that I'm not a game developer, right? But I would say that the base of the game is there. So essentially for them to make a sequel to the game, unless they completely switch in locations, shouldn't really be too much of a task. I mean, as far as, you know, your visual aspects of the game go, you really have that base there, so now you're just adding to it and just taking that to a next level. So I think that core part being the base of the game, because if you go back, you know, this game essentially was delayed, you know, by quite some time. It took forever for it to be released, and it just had a lot of people waiting and waiting, but then when it did release, it was massive. But the great thing is about this game is no one really knew what to expect. I mean, you see footage at E3, and of course we did like it. A lot of people loved it, and it definitely just got a massive hype train going. But what's crazy, and I guess you could say was the most difficult for Insomniac Games, is unlike the Avengers game, no one could actually just go ahead and play it. You know, there's not going to be, well, there wasn't a beta for the game and so forth. Although they were shown a lot more, of course, at the time than the Avengers game, it's still hard for them to take feedback because, again, only a certain amount of people actually got their hands to play the game. And I think that's what's interesting to see, because if Insomniac Games were able to sort of master what the community's ideas were at that time without most of the people even playing the game, can you imagine how this sequel will be, going on the basis of all the things that they did miss in this first Spider-Man game on PS4 that they are now able to implement into the next game. And it's also worth finally taking into consideration that most of the things that they probably had to remove in, you know, the current Spider-Man game was probably due to where we stand with the current gen consoles and just how far you can push it, maybe graphically or whatever it may be. I mean, a good example to probably mention, which is long gone, is quite literally water under the bridge, but would be the whole puddle situation. I mean, the game at E3 literally looked like a CGI trailer, and then of course, you know, it was crazy, people saying downgrades and so forth, but little things like graphically, I mean, they've instantly got that perk with the current, well, with what's going to be the new gen consoles being the PlayStation 5, exactly tech stuff, I mean, detail by detail on what is different, I don't actually know, but naturally there's going to be, you know, a ton of doors now open for the developers to just take this game to the next level. And answering the question that I asked you guys at the beginning of the video, if I had to say, you know, two things I really want to see in this game, it definitely just has to be, you know, a longer story mode, I would like to say. Although it was already long, it was really good, but multiple endings in the story mode to make it longer essentially. Definitely a co-op feature or some kind of multiplayer feature where you can go head to head with your friends, maybe switching into villains and so forth. I mean, again, we can go in depth with this in another video, but you kind of get a gist on where I'm going. And lastly, more customization when it does come down to your characters, and definitely just really being able to play as Peter Parker to understand two different types of characters. So you got Spider-Man, and then of course you got Peter Parker. I mean, other than that, right now top of my head, I really couldn't think of a bunch of more things that I could say, well, you know why the first game wasn't really successful is because it didn't have this. There really isn't anything. I mean, the game was great, it just naturally died down purely because it's a single player game, and they stopped adding things to it, and all the things they did add to it, of course the additional storylines, which was great, you then just had your custom outfits and so forth. So although it was a nice touch, it just genuinely wasn't anything to keep a game like that live long enough. But it's a game that definitely is ranked up there, easily game of the year when it does come down to an exclusive game for PlayStation 4 in my personal opinion. But guys, that's going to wrap up this video here. So to kind of just quickly summarize it, it's going to come sooner than we actually think. It's going to be a PlayStation 5 exclusive. Backwards compatibility, God knows if that's actually going to be a thing. Lastly, in terms of a release date, we're talking Christmas 2021. Basically the same kind of time frame, I guess, when it comes down to the release date for the last one. Probably that kind of, sequel, or I guess you could say. So you guys get in the comment section below, leave your thoughts. It's going to wrap up this video here. If this is real and it's actually happening, you got to take into consideration that there is a Batman game being rumored as well. So Avengers, Batman, and a Spider-Man 2 game. The competition will be high. But guys, I'll see you in the next one. Till then, have yourselves a ridiculously amazing day, and adios amigos.